Okay, we should be back. Hopefully, we are going to be a little better broadcasting. Maybe. But it does.
I have to watch a commercial before it comes back
Yeah,
up,
me too.
e e even though I'm a subscriber.
We are back. I had to make some adjustments, and we're going to try this, but it doesn't allow me while I'm streaming, so I had to cut it off for a minute. Hopefully, it will be better now. Yeah, I know, I know. We're working on it. So always another work in progress. Last week and this week, I don't know what has changed. Yeah, well, I actually stopped the feed and started it back. So because I changed some settings, maybe that will help it. Uh, but I'm assuming everybody can hear us okay then. Hopefully, everybody that was here early
Hopefully.
run off. What the hell? Yeah, that is true right now. Like, yeah, I guess we're gonna have to look at something.
Did you stream last night, John?
I did for a little bit.
I missed it. I missed it.
It was a shorter. I think I only did an hour, but I did get my IRL building
Okay.
construction part. Now it's
Ready to
ready to paint.
paint.
Other than I'm going to change the doors on. I printed the doors on the ankle doors. It
Hmm.
look like cellar doors.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I want to straighten them up. So I'm going to make a little change the. I hadn't really noticed
Seems
that
good.
till
Was that your only hobby activity since last we met? Have you done anything else?
uh, that would be it. Other than Chris was working on the Kodiak, so I kind of
Mhm.
questions there. A couple of it will be ready.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it next to something else.
Yeah, well, it's going to be it's going to be up for.
Nice.
I wanted to group.
Do we know what the next thing Chris is gonna work on is?
No, he has not told me.
Hmm. Chris, if you can hear us out in the internet, tell us what you're gonna work on.
Yeah, because I haven't decided. Yeah, I guess it's partially. I don't know.
Come on.
I don't know what we're going to on next. I
Mm.
don't know why my volume keeps dropping off. Um, I was having some mic problems earlier, so hopefully we won't be. It won't be too annoying. I've only got another 40, 43.
Sounds like you're in jail,
I
John.
know, I know. Yes. Oh, don't say that because I promised I wouldn't call him out online. Oh, he made me promise yesterday, so don't. It's not my son's fault. If you're watching, Nate,
Yeah.
I didn't do it. It's Chris.
Hmm. Well, I mean, are we gonna throw it wide open?
It's wide open. Do you have something you want me to answer?
I just earlier I was thinking, a little bit about your writing thing. So I've been trying to explore like the nooks and crannies of the CAV universe, things that I've never heard about. So what happens after a battle? I mean, the fight is over, the forces have pulled back, there's wreckage. What happens to the stuff that gets left on the battlefield? I mean, do the sides tend to clean up? Do they dispose of it? Is it salvage? What's left on the battlefield after a CAV a CAV encounter?
Well, a lot of it's going to depend on the faction, of course. I mean, whoever controls the battlefield at the end controls whatever's left. Um, the the factions, our main empire people, um,
Hmm.
none of that gets reused. They don't use it for. It's like a T1 or an NEM1 taking out a T80. You know, they're not going to
Hmm.
go fix the T80 and put it in. So what would generally happen is, um, I mean, like the Rock. To me, they probably leave everything. Um, no, faction squad sizes are not going to be changed. Those are set. Um, so because the Rock really don't care, so to them it's, or I guess if it was a matter of if they were worried about somebody taking it to use them against them, they might about it. Um, some of the other, again, to me, and that may be across the. I mean, obviously I haven't given this a million minutes of thinking, but probably for the most part, that stuff gets left behind, and scavengers come in and grab that
Hmm.
stuff and take what they're going to take, and a lot of it probably gets moved off to be sold on the secondary market to mercenaries, stuff like that that go to the areas that they frequent. That would be
Pirates and people like that.
Yeah, that would be my guess. But obviously it's going to be a lot more danger. Trying to go into a rock area and something. Um, so that to me that's really what it's going to be. I mean, there's no the 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 different factions don't really need it. Their main
Hmm.
thing is going to be is from being used against them. As far
Right.
as especially if they were putting down a revolt or something like that, planet, they wouldn't want stuff to get it. But I don't know what would be the best way to destroy it. You've ever watched one of those things destroy engine blocks? Maybe they carry a great big cab one.
Hmm. Maybe.
Drop the cab in there. So something that's gonna. I mean, I'll have to do some more thought on that actually.
I mean, I said all that to bring up the subject of things like black markets. I mean, it occurs to me, kind of similar thinking that there's got to be a way for these off-brand forces to get their hands on stuff. Other than just going to the to the corporation that makes them and buying a cab. I don't even know if that would be legal. Maybe they fall off the back of the drop ship sometimes. The way things do allegedly in stories,
Oh
and
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, that would be that stuff. But yeah, I mean that's where the salvage from the battles is where the big
Mhm.
secondary market is. And Cthulhu. I mean, a lot of people say that the Rock. Why don't they just nuke? They would just nuke everybody. That they don't care. Um, Actually, the only planet that they have ever tried to destroy outright was Earth. Um, they actually did fire. Um, the in the writing you'll see when they firebombed the planet. Basically, um,
Mhm.
that kind of came from they thought they could get away with it because nobody knew what was going on in the Terra thing. There's a lot of stuff that had happened between the Terrans and the Rock at that point that they decided that it was just easier to get rid of us, at least for the home planet. But the main reason that they don't come in and nuke worlds as part of the overall, this is what we do every day, is because you nuke somebody's world, somebody's going to nuke your world.
Yeah.
So it just kind of becomes a kind of that mad doctrine um,
Mhm.
that they try to keep away from, and especially worlds that are more habitable and stuff like that. I mean, they want to have access to those
Yeah.
worlds later, and they're just
Yeah, they're
as
valuable.
yeah, they're just as susceptible to radiation and everything that anybody else is. So,
Uh, a week or two ago, we talked about the relationships between the factions, and I think there's an answer in there too. I mean, pretty much, if you make the A to E's angry enough, they will come and eliminate you. And I think everybody knows that,
Right,
right?
right.
And so one way to get the Adenese off their butts
Yeah,
is to start nuking habitable planets into the Stone Age. And I think the Rock go, well, we don't want to rouse the sleeping bear or whatever they call the Adenese.
right.
And so we don't do that very
Well,
often.
and that's the reason why they tried to sneak it through on Terra is,
Right.
nobody knew the Terrans were out there. I mean, the Adenese did know they were there, but they didn't realize that the Rock and them, um, so that's the reason why it hasn't been done again is just like James says, nothing gets everybody on the same page as you start nuking worlds. So
Hmm.
you might all of a sudden have Terrans, Templars, Malvernans, Ritters, and Adenese all deciding that Rock needs to go tomorrow.
Hmm.
And Rock at this point is smart enough to realize that there's no way that they couldn't survive.
It seems, I mean, if you just look back in real world history, a dozen or so years, maybe a little bit more, you might run into something similar to that.
Right, right. So
I mean, the coalition, right?
yeah, yeah. So it's just kind of fixed itself, and that's the reason why they haven't tried to go after Terra again, and that's the reason why that's become such a huge uh, event in the CAV universe
Hmm.
because that's the first time anybody had tried to do that on
Hmm.
a planetary basis. The millions that made everybody go, "What the hell?" So
Krugerrand has a rules question. But before we get to that, I just want to observe that there the more I learn about the CAV universe, the more I see parallels to Earth's military history, which I like. I like that a lot. I mean, this event with the Terrans on the Rock reminds me of the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima and how that's not been a thing since then. So there's a lot of parallels there that I think give the CAV universe sort of a verisimilitude. It makes it feel kind of real because it parallels our experiences.
well, and also take into account from a game mechanics one, how boring would it be if we just started nuking
Yeah,
everybody's
yeah,
world? So
yeah.
we have to come up with a reason. How does a bunker use a guided missile launcher attachment? I believe that it is, and I think that might have showed up in the FAQ that a bunker gets an automatic target lock. I think is they only have one action to shoot, but I think they either have a tag attached or a target. I'd have to go back and double check, but I think it's in the FAQ that explains how bunkers can use guided missiles. They don't get any targeting bonus. It's just like the default targeting computer in a
Yeah.
CAV that allows them to lock on to somebody and shoot. Um, but they're not part of a squad. Nothing between bunkers can be shared. So even if all your bunkers are on the same activation card, they're played as separate one.
Hmm.
I don't remember if it's in the book or the FAQ, Kruger, but I'm pretty sure there's a paragraph somewhere. Um, if you don't find it, ask the question on the Facebook page if you can, and that way I can get you an exact answer without stopping here. I contrary to what everybody believes, I do not have all this stuff memorized.
It's okay.
It just there's
We have
just there's
faith in you.
just too much of it anymore. I can't keep track of it all, and I'm getting old. That's part of it.
Nah, you're a young man.
Sometimes I can only hope.
Yeah. So what about CP points? Can my squad attach a bunker for a for one activation to a squad using a CP point?
Cannot.
God,
They all act do their own thing. There
interesting. So do
sorry,
do bunkers get activation
they
cards?
do if they have weapons attached.
Hmm.
I believe they if all your bunkers are on the same card, but you would
Okay,
put a card in the deck for your bunkers, and then they all activate it at the same time, and I'll have one action point.
interesting. Interesting.
There was a good conversation that came up on the Facebook one of the Facebook groups the other day, talking again about squads, about mixing models, Do you remember that? I think you jumped in on where they were talking about
Yeah.
calves and um and where that kind of fell back into it, and I kind of think it answered itself as people were saying things, is the faction doctrines, the way people are set up, the way you have to build your squads and everything like that, is to make you think. We could make it free flowing and make it so that you can design the most perfect squad to go out there. Okay, and but I don't want that. I don't think that that's any fun. I think that you need to figure out ways to set things up, um, and you still can. I mean, you can. I think one of the things that confuses everybody is if you wanted to play a Terran unit, okay, and you put it all together, and let's say your first squad's an attack squad, and it's got 3 CAVs and 2 tanks in it, okay, that's still a legal Terran squad. It doesn't match the faction doctrine, so you could not use a faction doctrine if you're playing the full set of the rules as they're written, but you could still set that up that way and call yourself a Terran force. Technically, you are a mercenary or an independent force as far as the rules are concerned, but you're still a Terran unit, and you
Right.
can change that things around and and say this is the reason why they're doing it, or or whatever. But if you're still trying to play with a faction doctrine and get that in there, there's ways to move things around. And you might not necessarily have every squad that's mixed together, but you could build a CAV attack squad and then put in a vehicle attack squad. They're separate squads and they activate separately, but you get the benefit of both of those. And if you really have to have a squad that's mixed up, that's where the special squad comes. That's the catch-all.
Hmm.
If you have to have one that's mixed up, other than that, if you're allowed to make every squad a special squad, then everybody you would get just into everybody min max and everything.
And I'm 100% certain that I've expressed my opinion. I like the challenge of having to work around the inefficiencies of the not only the models but also the construction rules. I think that's where the flavor
Right,
comes in. Um, if you if you open the floodgates so that you can build anything you want, what you tend to do is people who are competitive or just like to look for puzzles, they find the best solution or the best couple of solutions, and that's all you
right.
see. um, there's only 2 or 3 lists that play well together, and you never see the little guys. So that's why I like the fact that like a Templar warlord cav has got some PPGs and some rockets, and just a mixture of things. Is that the most efficient way to build a cav?
Right.
No, not even close. But it's fun because now I got to think, how do I leverage this warlord to my best advantage?
Well, and some of that would fall. They were talking about, why would somebody have one of these and one of these and one of these? But again, it goes into, it's not like the M1 tank was made to fight in Europe. They look
Hmm.
down there like this is probably where we're going to fight. So we designed the M1 to fight in Europe. Well, guess what? We ended up having to fight over in the Middle East, really, with major tank formations. And now that's the reason
Hmm.
why you have, 3 or 4 different variations of the M1 that they've come to at this point, because they had to adjust for that environment and for what they were
Hmm.
doing. They don't have that ability as much in the CAV universe, is because of it being so much more encompassing, and the stuff is going on everywhere. A CAV has to kind of be ready to fight in any environment that it's going to find itself in. And
Yep.
sometimes it may be
Yep.
close, sometimes it may be long away, sometimes they may not have a lot of ammo. So the guys that with the lasers and stuff, and in the game it doesn't always catch up, but in to me, um, I would think if it was more reality based, that you would have CAVs with a lot more mixed energy and kinetic weapons, for that very reason. If
Yeah.
you run out of ammo, you've always got your laser weapons all back.
You got something to
Yeah,
fall back on,
yeah.
right?
So
Um, I I I I I like to think behind the scenes a little bit too, and, I imagine the people who had to pay for that CAV, had to pay for its development, who had to budget, who had to convince their citizens to be taxed at a certain rate. They're like, "All right, I've gotta have a CAV that can be applied in many different places," right?
Right.
It's like a modern day aircraft carrier, right? They're not designed to just destroy ships. They can destroy submarines. They can conduct, like land operations. They're them and their group. They can support a great number of things because they're so versatile. And I think the people that have to write those checks are thinking the same thing. I don't want to buy five calves to do five jobs. I want to buy one calf that can do all five jobs well enough.
And then also you get into the whole uh, weapons uh, developers and stuff like that, that they made a CAV and it may not be set up that great a CAV, but they have cousin that works in uh, acquisitions. And
Yep.
he got, yeah, he
Nepotism.
got a little bit of a kickback, and guess what? You ended up with the warlord.
It's so funny how that stuff is so true in real life. It's ridiculous. I work for an automotive manufacturer, and I won't go into any details, but there are certain customers who require a particular part on their vehicle, and that part can only be purchased from one vendor in the world. Now you figure how that
Right,
happened.
right. And a really good movie, if you're ever looking for something to watch about kind of how that works, is there's I think it was might have been an HBO movie or something like Kelsey Grammer, about the development of the Bradley. Have you ever seen
Yeah,
that? The steps that it went through, the how it
I don't
started.
think so.
It's a really good show, and I don't remember the name of it like that, but Kelsey Grammer is the colonel or whatever charge of, and I mean it's
Hmm.
supposed to be based on actual, how this stuff happened. Um,
Yeah, like a true
yeah,
story.
so obviously taking some liberties for movies, but um, from what the Bradley was originally designed to do to what it ended up,
Hmm.
the final version that got sold, that the military bought. It's really interesting to see how this guy knows this guy and this guy knows this guy, and oh, this guy has
Hmm.
aluminum armor, so let's take that all, even though that we know aluminum armor when it gets hit by a salvo round catches fire.
Hmm.
you know so that's okay, who cares, let's
Yeah,
throw them all out there.
it's
So
the thing. I To me, it's also interesting to watch over the course, of a lifetime, like with some of the Shermans in World War II, how they come out and they're only an okay tank. They're not really up to the job they need to do. They go back, they work on it, they evolve it, they get newer versions, they upgun it, they change the armor. It's kind of interesting, and I think that kind of thing would happen in the CAV
right,
world too. I mean, once you set up a production facility to make banshees, right? You're going to crank out banshees until that thing isn't useful anymore. You upgrade it, upgun it, whatever it takes. You've got the infrastructure there to build banshees. Let's not suddenly start building Tiamats here. This is a banshee
right.
factory.
And and yeah, and you see a lot of that, and that's where some of the upgrades come in, I think, too. I mean, if you go in and look at what the Israelis did with World War II tanks, with tanks that everybody considered were not even worth using anymore, and the things that they went in to change, um,
Hmm.
to those, to the British chieftains, stuff like that, that the things that they change,
Hmm.
that they're taking supposedly modern, you know, Soviet tanks out, and
Hmm.
just crazy. I mean, training had a lot to do with that too, but they
Yeah,
made the Pentagon Wars. That's it. You're correct. There you
that's
go.
it. Yes, yes.
But yeah, I mean that's exactly what you're talking about. What they've got to do is this is what we've got to work with, and we've got to figure out how to make it work. So that
So just a super quick side note. When I was in the army, I was stationed at Fort Knox. I was not a tanker. I was a medic. Um, but I worked with the tankers. Man, those things are claustrophobic. Oh my God. John, you could not be a tanker.
well, I was self-propelled artillery, so I was on the
Yeah.
109s, which is basically the same chassis. It's got a bigger box on.
Mhm.
Oh
But
yeah,
is that the self-contained
yes,
one?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they suck. I couldn't get in one to drive it, so I could
Yeah.
get into the box to to shoot, but
Mm,
yeah, I couldn't drive them. It wasn't going to
mm,
happen. So
yeah. All right. So banshees, right? We getting more banshees. Is that what we
well, we
said?
need to, yeah,
Lots and lots of
we need
these?
to do that. That's one of the things. Chris was in today. We were talking about a couple of things, and as I announced last week, we're in the process of putting in our own inspection machine, being able to do everything
Mm,
in house. So that it came up, yes, is we love, let's do more variants. Let's come up with some uh, change out kits and some, weapon sprues and stuff like that. Cause now we'll have the ability to do that all in house. So it's not like
mm,
that we have to worry about coming up, going and buying 3,000 of something to use.
right.
So
Right.
it's going good. We are working on getting everything in and making sure everything that's going to go. We have to schedule training. I mean, it's going to be a long process. I'm still looking at 60 days. That's my optimum place. So I'm hoping sometime Decemberish. Um, yeah,
Christmas.
I don't know that we'll be starting to release anything at that. I mean, right now we're planning pretty much everything on next year. Uh, not only because of the changes that we're making,
Mhm.
still don't seem to have got any virus.
Eh, enough about that silly
Yeah,
virus. I'm still thinking about alternative
yeah.
turrets. I would just love for you guys to, just leave some of the chassis alone and just make like a different turret for the Banshee, a different turret for the Spatha, like I mean just something that's just an evolution. You could buy a pack of turrets like that had a one or two different variations in it, and then you could change up your stuff. Oh, that's heaven right there. I'm excited.
Yeah. Cthulhu, I would love to do a video, but that'll probably be a while because we are doing some proprietary stuff that we don't want
Yep.
everybody else to see what we're doing. At some point, it'll get out, and at that point, kind of keep that close to the. Um, what's the first model that we'll produce? I think that the Amethyl stuff is already on the Cobra, the King Cobra, um,
Mhm.
the new the Despot B, definitely on that list because we're out of the original Despot. Actually, I think 6 of them out. For the most part, we are out. Um,
Did you mention in the past something about the resin airplanes going into
yes,
the new
yeah,
process
the
early?
airplanes will be able to go right in. They already have those registered. But it'll be
And
more of at that really at the first 2 or 3 months. We'll have more stuff than we can release because we want to be able to spread it out a little because we want to get into a monthly. So I do like we do Kickstarter and 20 models out the gate. We're back to where we were.
yeah,
So, but we'll get there. We'll get, like I said, I don't know how many we're going to do on a monthly basis. I'd like to be maybe 4-ish. So, take
nice,
us long, at least at the beginning.
nice. So I get confused sometimes. The actual molds that you're going to use in this new process, you're making those in
We
house,
are,
or are you working with a third party to
we
do
will be
that
doing those in house,
in house? Okay. So one of your employees knows how to make molds, right?
sort of.
Sort
Well,
of. Okay, we're going
I
to
mean,
learn.
it's an all new mold process. I mean, we know,
Right.
I know how to make molds, but
Yeah, from your
right
Reaper days.
from making metal molds and stuff like that, and I know
Right.
how they make for, steel die cast. This is an all new process developed in the. So they're all going to have to learn. All they're going to,
Nice.
but it's luckily a lot of the process, the theory behind it is
Hmm.
similar to other things. I mean, it's applying
Yeah,
that to their technique.
I'm excited.
too. Um,
I can only
so,
imagine.
and we did finally this week close on our land. We're good to go there. So start finalizing our building add-on. Yeah, so you would be surprised how probably close that really is.
So what I heard is that Terrain Tuesdays in the future are going to be working on a one-to-one scale building,
Yes,
right?
yes, sure. And that's another. Speaking though of Train Tuesday, I got all these things that I want to do that I want to show. Um, I've got to reorientate that because it's very easy to do it on a YouTube deal, because you
Hmm.
cut out you what you don't need. Whereas when you're live and you got to
Hmm.
show something, do something, and then you got to let it dry. I've got to work that out because there's a lot of I want to start building a lot.
Yeah. So the painters that work with oils, I've been watching them a lot
Right,
lately, and those take forever to dry. Well, maybe not forever, but a while. And so what they'll do is they'll have two or three projects. They'll be painting on a cavalry guy, get him or her to the point where they're done, set it off to the side, pick up a space marine, work on their space marine, set him off, grab something else, and then by then maybe they can go back and tinker with the very first one. It's not dry.
right.
But it's dry enough that they can go in and if they're careful, work on the first ones. They just have a little circle that they're working around. Maybe something like
Well, and
that?
that's I've tried to do that early on. When I was doing the trees and stuff like that, I'd have that I'd already done. But where this really has come up is the Tyrell building. Is I
Mhm,
can't have 10 different Tyrell buildings. This one, so um, probably at this point I'll probably have to do a lot of the base paint off on its own, kind of come
mhm.
and try to explain techniques or something. I don't know. We're working on it. This is still big learning process that I had an entire visual arts department here.
Mhm. You just have one.
I have one.
I just had a great idea for your April Fool's Day
Okay.
broadcast. I don't even know if that's on one of your days. You and Chris switch roles. You go do 3D modeling, Chris comes over and builds terrain.
Okay.
I'd like to see that.
All right. Here's a square. I'll do a gelatinous cube. What I'll do.
You you can build the what was it, the Badger? That little boxy,
Yeah.
grab unit that isn't allowed anymore? You can make the Badger 2.
So yeah, my problem is I can do stuff like it. I haven't even tried to what Chris does. I
Mm.
yeah,
That's why it's an April Fool's event.
Jello cav molds next kick. Well, for all intensive purposes, especially after this machine is in house, there. So any Kickstarters that we do in the future is for something special, a specialty item or something
Yeah.
like that.
Well,
Be a good time
uh,
for a drink
18.
break.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would. Go downstairs and get something to
No, I
drink.
got some.
Oh, I mean, normally we could easily slip into convention talk and whatnot, but who knows what's going to happen with
That is
that?
still a total cluster. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No idea how that's even going to shape up. So
Hmm. Maybe we need some sort of New Year's Eve stream. I mean, hopefully New Year's Eve will arrive. Something special to celebrate with.
drunk cav, drunk cav,
Drunk cab, drunken
drunken
cab.
cav.
Is there any other kind of cab?
I not that anybody would want to watch or that wouldn't
Yeah.
get us arrested. So yeah, and that's I mean that's the uh Well, yeah, NashCon announced dates, but that's, I mean, they're in the boat that they have to. All the cons are going to have to start doing dates and say this is what we're going to do. But until the week before the con, that, I mean, literally, I think at least they're going to be a little later in the year in August. But
Hmm.
the first 3 or 4 months of next year, you won't know if there's going to be a convention till the week before it's supposed to be. I would say it's pretty
Right.
going to be pretty close.
I I wondered about ReaperCon. ReaperCon is my one of my favorites to go to in person. Lots of good people there, lots of fun things to do. I wonder what the cutoff date in the year is for them to like, go no go on terms of having a physical convention. How close can they get to the date for ReaperCon and change their minds and go
Well,
virtual?
I mean, I think just looking at this year is a good deal. When did they actually? Did we April?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty early.
So the first 3 or 4 months of the year, they had to pull the plug at that point. So now
Hmm.
we're going to do a virtual show again in March. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
I've been thinking about my force.
well, hopefully we'll have a lot more stuff to offer this time. So, but I was
Yeah.
glad to see that NashCon went with the first week of August because that will separate them from ReaperCon this year. Allow me to go that same weekend or the weekend after each other. That wasn't cutting it.
Mm. So John, I mean, without asking you to commit, finally, if ReaperCon is physical this year, will you be there?
We will. I don't know
Okay.
in what form that'll be. I
Hmm.
don't know. There's lots of things changing. I mean, they're making changes on too. Like I said,
Yeah.
they're really pushing towards going more back into pictures, painting. I don't think that you're going to see a lot of
Gaming.
gaming other than more of the
Hmm.
RPG stuff. That kind of work more in with the.
Yeah, that's true. Well, if Talon Games doesn't go, hopefully you'll go and we can just hang out.
Oh yeah. No, like I said, we'll probably. I'm sure we'll be there with a booth and everything like that. But I don't know that we'll be pushing everything. Again, I don't know. It's hard to plan for a physical CavCon at this. I mean, it's even in a worse boat for us um,
Hmm.
with changes that they're making. And are we going to set us an area and do it? Or are we going to move it around with some other conventions? I don't know. I have to see how it goes.
It's impossible to
Yeah.
say. Cthulhu, I saw the same thing. That building that the historical convention was held in is up for sale. Is a hotel here that used to do a historical convention. In fact, that's where I met Cthulhu at. Um, and that building is up for sale. It's not even a hotel anymore right now. Just a
Yeah.
building.
Well, and part of the problem too that hurts us is our area. I mean, we're right outside Wichita, which is a predominantly good sized town. I mean, we're probably on
Hmm.
the pretty scale wise with Tulsa, but it's a hard town to get into with the
Hmm.
airport. I mean, it's
Yeah.
very hard to get cheap air flights into Wichita area, um, and so I don't know that we would be. It would be hard for us to do something around here that would be beneficial for everybody to be
Yeah.
here and be there. Um, I would almost maybe look at just because we've worked with them in the past and we haven't had any further conversation, so don't all rush out and start sending them emails. But Little Wars up in the Chicago
Hmm.
area, I think would be a very very good show to try to attach ourselves.
Hmm.
And I think that
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know for sure since I've talked to them, but I think they would be open for something like that and be a little more receptive to what we wanted for gaming, miniature games orientated.
Hmm. Yeah. From what I understand, that place has a lot of crossover with what I think of as your market.
Yes. Well, that's your strongest gaming market in the United States is the Northeast. That's the
Oh yeah.
reason why Gen Con is in Indianapolis. That's why Origins is in Columbus. That's where all your historical conventions, for the most part, stay.
Hmm.
North of the Mason-Dixon line. So it's just that's just where it is. Obviously, that's where the greatest concentration of the population of the country is.
Hmm.
That's just where it happens.
Kind of go hand in hand. Did I saw something on Facebook about a Wichita convention this week?
Tsunami
TsunamiCon?
Con, they are uh, it's a very strange show. Um,
Hmm.
they approached us a couple of times when they very first started about going over there and being part of it, and I think the weekend it kind of a NashCon kind of a situation. It was either the weekend before another big show or the weekend after. So it just never worked out. 2 years ago, we went over and looked at it. We were in town, so I went over to look at the show and kind of check it out. They and I don't know. Of course, they're doing more virtual this year, but um,
Hmm.
they hold it in I want to say it's some kind of like a Masonic lodge. I don't know which group it is. I don't remember if it's the Lions or something like that, but it's a very old
Hmm.
building. Um,
Hmm.
and it just didn't seem like a good fit for us.
Okay. I was
So
just curious. It's the first convention out of Wichita I'd ever heard of. So.
yeah, because I've thought over the years about putting one together in Wichita over there, and it all falls back to I don't know that there's enough people in just Wichita in order gamer wise to get to the size
Hmm.
of show that it needs to be successful.
Right.
Um, and then trying to pull in people. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, driving wise, we would be okay probably from, Kansas City, Tulsa, Oklahoma City. Um,
Hmm.
that's about it. That's 3.5 hours, and anything for that the people fall off very quick. I mean, it's 6 hours to Dallas, but not very many people will drive 6 hours that would have drove 3 hours.
So maybe Oklahoma City. I mean, it's bigger than Tulsa, bigger than Wichita. I've never flown into there, obviously, because I live so close. But I suspect their airport's a little more central than Tulsa's.
Yeah, no, I
It's
think,
close.
and that was deal. But then at that point, I'm going out of town anyway. So at that
Hmm.
point, uh, where would I look? Where is that the best place to have it, or if
Probably not.
yeah, or pick somewhere, St. Louis or something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
once you're ready to move, you really have to think of where the best spot's going to be.
Yeah. I was just trying to think of all our CAV brethren down in Texas.
Yeah, well, and that's the same deal. I mean, it might be conducive to go down and set a show up in Dallas.
That's true. Hawaii. That's where we need to be. Hawaii.
There's actually a Hawaii convention.
Good Lord.
Yeah,
It's expensive to get out there, I
yes, yeah,
bet.
I'm sure it is. But we've donated stuff for them for the last 2 or 3 years. I think it's Hulacan or something like
Wow.
that. Yeah,
Nice.
big BattleTech has a big battle showing. The guys are pretty. I think one of the main guys behind it's a big.
Battletech.
And
Nothing wrong with that
yeah,
game.
and if we did our own show on that level, it would include other games
Hmm.
too.
Yeah.
That's what's so bad about it. I mean, we have some really nice convention space here in El Dorado that would be
Hmm.
perfect for CavCon. I mean, size wise, the way it's set up, everything like that. But it's again suck trying to get
Yep.
a lot of people here from. I mean, for you guys or something, it wouldn't be that bad. We have enough hotels that bad, but you know, somebody that was wanting to come in from Pennsylvania to the
Right.
show,
Todd. Yeah. Todd's not flying into El
yeah,
Dorado. Not from
right.
California.
Yeah, El Dorado's actually we've got a little feeder airport. We've got a decent size airport. It was a training airport
Hmm.
during World War II because of all the planes coming out of Wichita. There was a lot of the squadrons stuff that were training around. So it had a pretty good infrastructure. So um, a lot of people flying across country and stuff stopped there. Stop for, not being a pilot, I don't know. Using it very popular.
Airports used to be a lot more common. My parents' house here in Tulsa, literally across the 2-lane street, used to be an airport back before they ever bought it. The city got it converted into a park, but it was literally an airport back in the early 1900s.
There, almost every town around here, even the small ones, have an airport. I mean, it's not
Hmm.
obviously not any great level thing. Again, because of all the training that was done here during World War II, they built airfields everywhere.
Hmm.
So, which is pretty cool. I mean, Kansas has a very airplane orientated history. And you're home of Superman.
Home of
You're most-
Superman. Yes, yes, you are.
All right, so we have droned on. Questions. Let's throw some other questions out there. Give me another CAV one that I can try to be indecisive about. I'll give you some Supreme Court nominee type answers.
All right. So I'll jump in here while they're thinking.
I'll answer without actually answering.
A long time ago, you talked briefly about a new weapon system.
Yes.
Can't remember the name of it.
Well,
But whatever became of that thing?
I actually have it. It's all statted up and ready to go. Um, just because of where we're at right now, it wasn't something that I wanted. There's more than one. Actually, other
Okay.
because it'll just start another, you know, new models, new changes, new stuff like that.
Hmm.
And I'm just not ready to throw that out there.
Gotcha.
But it's
Can you tell us its name?
we actually didn't have a final one. We just call it the Canon
Okay.
right now, and
Okay.
that's basically what it is. It's more of a uh, like you would see on an M1 tank, more of a
Hmm.
that type of round. So how close is the first flashpoint is very close. We we actually I thought we were all going to be done by the end of last month, but again stuff came up, so very close. How goes the work on the JR? The JR is basically done. We had planned on trying to release it in March of this year, but when all the stuff started happening, we kind of dropped off on it a little bit. But we were pretty close then, and we pretty much finished it up. I think we still have a few art pieces left, but other than that, I think the rest of it's ready to go.
Have you previewed any of that art at all?
Um, Sometimes when you see some of the pictures that we put up, I mean, it's like, here's the dictator and the revenant behind me.
Hmm.
That's JOR artwork.
Okay.
So,
So is the JRR going to be full color art throughout,
yes,
or are we going to get the little
no,
wireframe?
it's going to
No.
be.
So
It's
it's all full
well,
color.
when you see the entry will have actually will be four different things.
Hmm.
You will have the collar version, um, the collar plate like you see here with the dictator or the revenant that will be in a particular unit's livery, color wise. Then you'll see a kind of a silhouette wireframe version for you to see
Hmm.
the different angles. So kind of like the old World War II identification charts, kind of some of the stuff we did in the last Kickstarter. That's where some of that was JOR stuff. And then there'll be two uh, pictures of actual painted figures with other unit paint schemes. So each
Nice.
entry for each model will have three paint schemes for three different units.
Hey, let's acknowledge that Leapling Bunny subscribed.
Well, thank you there, Leapling Bunny.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
and make sure if you guys haven't followed us, please follow us. It doesn't cost you anything. It just makes our numbers look better. So please follow us. We don't spam you with, so you'll be good. Has any of the CAV races used genetic modification to make super soldiers, like a Spartan from Halo? I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
You
I would
can't wait a minute. Didn't
I would say that there's probably some of that has been done.
didn't Cthulhu just win another drawing just now? I mean, he's that guy,
Another
right?
guy, another drawing.
Yeah,
Probably.
that's all he did was win.
You know what would drum up interest with you? A preview of the Banshee entry, everyone's favorite tank spotlighted in the must-have. Well, as far as I believe that the artwork that's on the data card is the JOR colored version of it. So
Kirk Rand is a
yeah,
genius. Let's just acknowledge that.
I am following you. Just not eat a lot of beans. Well, if the economy keeps up, we're all going to be eating beans. Lots of rice, lots of beans,
Cornbread.
cornbread.
We love
I love
cornbread.
corn.
Oh, I love cornbread so much.
We made
God.
some the other night. I guess so ago. We made beef stew. Me and the wife decided we had to
Mm,
have beef stew, so we cooked beef stew that for on a Saturday, and so I went ahead and made cornbread for that night, and I made it up thick. It was like the
wow.
big thick, like
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
Oh, it tasted so
you're making
good.
me
It
hungry.
was so good.
Me and my wife are gonna take a little weekend trip down to a lake cabin in November where we're gonna cook outside, and we're trying to puzzle out how to make stew and cornbread like the old fashioned way, like camping out. It's gonna be fun as long as we don't kill each other,
It, it
from
it's
poisoning or
it's
something.
all cast iron. You figure out how to
Yeah,
use cast iron, and you can cook anything.
nice.
Change your name to Mongo.
That's a bean reference, I'm pretty sure.
You know,
Something from the. Go
it
ahead.
would be cool. I know that there's a lot of the way they changed uh, licensing and everything like that. I'd love to play a Flash Gordon. Speaking of Mongo, I would love to play a
Mhm.
Flash Gordon mini game. I think that would be great.
That would be
Yeah,
fun. That would be hilarious.
RPG. I think they've tried to do an RPG game. Uh, I mean, if you really look at all the different armies that would be available,
Hmm.
don't just think of the movie. Yeah,
Birdmen.
you don't. There's a lot more than just the Hawkmen and everything like that. There's
Mhm.
hundreds of different races that are part of the empire that you could do armies. It's cool.
Yes. So when you think of Flash Gordon, do you think of the movie? Is that the first thing that pops into your mind?
No, the Flash Gordon that I grew up with was the animated series that they did
Hmm.
back in the '70s or whatever. That was on Saturday mornings, but it really was designed for adults. If you go back
Hmm.
and watch it, it was not very kid friendly.
It's a lot of those
Yeah,
shows. I,
but I
I'm a
loved it. It was great.
I'm a as a kid, as a young kid, I was a huge Batman '66
Yeah,
fan. Um, I just loved that
yep.
show. I would come home from kindergarten and watch the reruns. It was just my favorite thing to do in the world. And then, it was hard to find those kind of shows, as I grew up, before we had the internet. But I managed to stumble upon it while I was in college up in Ithaca, New York, and I watched it again as a young adult, and I was like, wow, this show is not really for kids at
Right.
all. What the hell?
Yeah, Queen. Well, and then that's why I was going to go in. So after I got older, a little bit older, I went back and watched a lot of the 20s and 30s the serials. Flash Gordon,
Hmm.
loved those. So when they
Yeah.
did the movie with Sam Jones and kind of did that campy kind of feel to it, I love the movie.
Hmm.
I actually have memorized the Flash Gordon movie. So I'd
And,
make everybody
and we are
mad when I
talking.
watch it because I talk as
So we're talking about the movie with the Queen soundtrack where Brian Brethad played
Yes,
the head of the
yes,
Hawkmen. Okay, good.
yeah. That that was actually supposed to be a trilogy, and
I didn't know that.
Sam Jones, the guy that played
Mhm,
Flash, they got into a big
mhm,
argument, and he actually walked out. I think they were only like halfway done with filming, so they had to go
hmm,
back and change. I mean, film things to fill in the fact
hmm.
that he wouldn't show. I think Netflix or something had a deal up on it about uh, explaining how all that happened and all went down. But he was actually signed up to do 3 movies.
Sounds painful to your wallet to me to break a contract like that.
The the, the reason they yes and no, Chris, they changed uh, some of that and they did a squirrely way to be able to come back and figure out the years, and that's the reason why all of a sudden some of the Edgar Burroughs books and stuff like that are not. They actually were in public domain for a while, but they've come back and flipped it around. So Flash
Hmm,
Gordon is actually tied up.
hmm.
I saw a whole story on it.
If you have enough money, you get to change the rules.
There was a Flash Gordon TV series that I believe was on Amazon. It was absolutely the worst. I don't think I made it 30 minutes through the first show.
Hmm. You're
So
breaking up in the stream and stuttering.
well,
And it's
well,
9:04.
it's 9 o'clock. So now that since we've totally gone off onto Flash Gordon, uh, let's call it a night, James. I
Yeah.
think that the stream just disconnected, so we're done anyway.
Okay.
Oh man,
All right. Well, that was good
yeah.
timing then.
Oh,